Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 47 of 52 Weeks of Leadership. My name is Molly Anderson, and I'm the Executive Director of the UB Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. We're so thrilled to have you here with us today on this holiday week, where we have a very special guest with us, Michael Weiner, President and CEO of United Way of Buffalo and Erie County. He's going to talk to us today about participatory leadership, personal experiences and approaches. We're really proud of the fact that he has 2 master's degrees from the University of Buffalo, both in business and rehabilitation counseling. In his spare time, he's a clinical instructor in the UB School of Medicine, an active board member in the Buffalo Niagara Partnership. So he has a wealth of experience to draw from. I want to thank our sponsor, Geico, for making this series possible. And like all of our programs, we will have a moment to answer some questions in the chat. So feel free to add those at any point and we'll get to them. So I'd like to turn it over to Michael and give him a big welcome from us.
Hi, everybody. Molly, thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm very excited to have this opportunity to actually do a summary of what I think the art of participatory leadership is all about. And I thought about this presentation for a while. And one of the things that I thought about was when I originally talked with Rick about doing this session, it would be a lot about personal experience as an executive leader. But I also thought back that maybe, just maybe, I first needed to provide some foundational knowledge about what participatory leadership was really all about. And that really is why I got excited about doing this. So I could apply not only my personal experience, but give you some of that foundational knowledge as well. So let me start with that. The next slide is about what participatory leadership is about. Let's go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So, and I kidded Jim about this earlier, that I actually have a quote from Jim. One of the first sessions that Jim did through the leadership forum had a compelling definition just about leadership. And so I wanted to share that with you just to tee up the conversation. So in Jim's words, leadership is getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it, and helping them to accomplish things they didn't know they were capable of. I'm sure, Jim, that resonates for you. And I know that there are a variety of leadership approaches to accomplish this end game. You could see on the slide, I took from literature what a definition of participatory leadership is. And you could see it's about the management style that invites input from employees at all or most company decisions. Employees are given pertinent information regarding company issues, and they provide input on a course of action the company will take. Participatory leadership decision-making can take many forms, but the key element is collective input from all members of the organization. And collective input requires trust, because without it, you really don't truly collaborate. You merely coordinate, or at best you cooperate. And according to our very well-known author, Steve Covey, it is trust that transforms a group of people into a team. So let's go to the next slide. One of the things that I realized that I thought would be helpful would be allowing you to be able to differentiate what traditional approaches mean in terms of leadership from participatory leadership. And I found this list that I found in the literature of great help. So the slide gives you that opportunity. And I will tell you that it should be of no surprise that in a traditional top-down managerial approach, executive leaders are in complete control, with the process typically viewed as siloed, solution-oriented, without adequate and informed decision-making, with limited self-motivation to participate on the part of the workforce, and a true absence of collaboration, trust, and networking, leading to engagement that is not informed, purpose-oriented, innovative, and inclusive in approach. For me, the concept of hosting is so evident as an effective tool for leading with purpose in a participatory framework. And what do I mean by hosting? A host leader is someone who engages fellow participants in a purposeful endeavor. And a truly effective host leader knows when to step forward and when to also step back depending on the situation and the moment that is the focus. So which leads me to believe that it's also important to look at what are the characteristics associated with participatory leadership. And that comes up in the next slide. You could see from the slide that there are several characteristics that are the focus of leadership from a participatory standpoint. So let me just go through and sort of flesh out a little bit about what each of them actually mean. So from a communication standpoint, communication between leaders and staff ensure ideas can flow seamlessly and in ways that make the workplace more productive. A participatory leader is also open to advice and feedback that will help the organization, which in turn helps the community succeed, which could be from either a service or economic standpoint. And it's worth noting this approach helps individuals from a personal development standpoint as well. Participatory leaders search for innovative solutions to problems and challenges. They have a curious nature encouraging them to explore more. By continuously encouraging employees, participatory leaders are more apt to become comfortable sharing their thoughts and presenting the organization with fresh insights, another benefit from a self-development perspective. And I will tell you that staff, in my experience, truly appreciate being able to access development opportunities. So encouraging development, whether it's training, whether it's encouraging somebody to go back to school for advanced training opportunities, participating in programs like Leadership Buffalo, Lead with Purpose training opportunities, which Jim has been very helpful with, or even attending conferences is another way to help people around that pathway around self-development. And so being a leader that encourages those opportunities, I think, is very significant. An effective participatory leader uses teamwork to put ideas and people together in distinct ways for various projects. And I recall my own early UB MBA academic experience where I learned to work in small teams to accomplish projects and quickly saw the benefit of surrounding oneself with individuals who thrive on collaboration and bring a unique perspective and set of skills to the conversation. I can't tell you how much I recall being in the MBA program while I was working full-time. I would be exposed to people who had skills that I didn't myself have and how much that benefited the team in terms of projects we worked on, something I'm sure a lot of people on the call can appreciate. And finally, a participatory leader keeps everyone satisfied by considering alternative ideas and solutions for getting things done. It's a chance for us to position ourselves as leaders to think proactively rather than always reactively. So let's go to the next slide. This next slide gives me a chance to talk about the 4 types of participatory leadership approaches that are also highlighted in the literature. And those include these 4 categories. And I want to define them for you because it then allows me to share my perspective and my strategy and pathway towards leadership. So the first one is consensus. And here the leader does not have additional powers over other members of the group and works exclusively as a facilitator where at the end, all parties must agree. In a collective approach here, all responsibility falls equally on the group and the leader helps facilitate, but the entire group is responsible for the process and the outcome. Under a democratic type of leadership, here the leader has more power than the group as a whole. Ideas are provided by the group and voting may occur on the outcome, but the leader has the final say on the actions to be taken. And finally, in an autocratic style, here the leader holds even more power than a democratic leader. There is less precedence put on the ideas of the group and more on the leader. As you can see, participatory leadership embraces a number of different styles, which has meant the clear definition of the model remains somewhat elusive. However, for me personally, a democratic approach has been my sweet spot and very complementary to my work in the not-for-profit and public sector. While I appreciate the ultimate decision rests with me as the CEO, I embrace the input of others at all levels and have learned to be agile and respectful of others in decisions that are made in support of the organization. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about advantages and disadvantages of this particular leadership approach. It's worth noting that participatory leadership works best when the team is sufficiently informed about and invested in the inner workings of the organization and its wider goals. This slide represents a list of advantages and disadvantages associated with participatory leadership. And while the advantages, in my opinion, far outweigh the disadvantages, a strong leader needs to be sensitive to the challenges associated with such an approach. Depending on the type of industry, costs and efficiency factors could loom heavily on the overall organizational performance. On the upside, and given the current employment marketplace, participatory leadership is best positioned to elevate morale, improve retention, and promote collective thought that improves productivity, which in turn benefits us all. Interestingly, our experience in light of the pandemic has been somewhat skewed in that turnover has been higher than ever before here at the United Way, and stress associated with current external environment has compromised morale to an elevated extent. And this is evident not only within our own organization, but as I continue to learn about other organizations and do my due diligence around public sector, not-for-profit, and business sector experiences, this is true across multiple sectors. So this is not entirely unique to just the United Way. Let's go to the next slide. Here, I want to make that application to how participatory leadership has evolved in my own professional career. So while I originally had a vision of concentrating my career on direct service in counseling and clinical psychology, I learned early on that my interest and skill was more in line with leading people and managing programs. I have focused my attention on creating an organizational structure that affords me the opportunity to learn and lead in a collaborative, value-based, and unifying fashion. I have also come to appreciate the importance of surrounding myself with a diverse group of team members and leaders in order to maximize organizational effectiveness and impact. So for me as a leader, the role of host has had more meaning than ever, and engaging others in a purposeful way. And I want to give you some common examples of my executive leadership approaches and experiences from several different perspectives. When I was a regional director for the State Office of Mental Health, in my role as a commissioner, both in mental health and in social services here in Erie County, and more recently, the last 12 years here at the United Way. So it starts with creating an organizational culture that's inclusive, diverse, and collaborative in approach. It embraces the importance of bringing key stakeholders to the table to ensure a focus on purpose, innovation, collective input, and an openness to new ways of performing. It encourages trust and self-development pathways as well. So here, from an implementation standpoint, are some common leadership elements that I have embraced in my work in the public sector and also in the not-for-profit sector. Creating an executive leadership with a view towards skills and expertise around teamwork that meets regularly and embraces collaboration. Here at the United Way, for example, and in my work in the public sector, I meet regularly on a weekly basis with C-level leaders, both individually and as a team. That has worked very well for me, regardless of the size of the organization. And that's, for me, is one of the participatory leadership qualities that I think has had a great advantage. I also engage managers on a regular basis for input and demonstrating an appreciation for their contributions as well. So here at the United Way, for example, all the managers come together for a meeting on a monthly basis, and we establish a collaborative agenda so that it sets the tone and the direction and the breadth of those meetings. In addition, I make myself accessible to staff throughout the process. So that means a couple of things. Regularly scheduled team meetings. Once a month, the entire team comes together and we jointly establish an agenda, which is also directed by and managed by the HR director. We do continuous emails and newsletters to keep staff informed, and we operate the C-level managers, all operate and leaders operate under an open door policy context as well. And also, I find that it's very, as an executive leader, it's also beneficial to convene and listen to key customers and stakeholders on a consistent basis as well. So whether it's my board leaders or my board chair, whether it's our volunteer leaders, whether it's major donors, whether it's colleagues in the field, and even my friends, they all are assets and help provide influence as well along that domain. Let's go to the next slide. Here I wanted to highlight some of the importance of participatory leadership and how I assess the efficacy of that approach. So it starts with allowing me to assert my leadership style in an inclusive and diverse manner. It enables me to undertake large-scale work decisions and projects in an effective and efficient manner. It allows me to promote empowerment, creativity, and accountability throughout the workforce. And the important ingredients here include involvement in decision-making process and encouraging the sharing of responsibility. Without supporting those qualities, I think you compromise that democratic participatory leadership approach. Assessment needs to be continuous and multifaceted, and internal and external methods can be applied here to ultimately fulfill organizational goals and objectives. We rely on strategic plan for direction, but we also use performance planning tools to track how we're doing against the strategic plan. And openness to outside input as well is important. And sometimes we'll look to organizational consultants to help us in that parameter as well. Tracking key performance indicators against our organization's strategic direction heightens productivity and value. And here I have come to embrace business planning templates to track and report findings on a regular basis to key stakeholders like staff, board governance leaders, supporters, and the like. And continuously surveying staff for input on operations, policies, and practices are also an asset in this leadership approach. A recent example of that, or takeaway for me, we've done several surveys and focused team meetings over the last 16 months on our policies and protocols as they relate to return to office and community engagement, particularly in light of the pandemic, obviously. And monitoring retention and satisfaction are also critical. Here again, recent experience has shown us that the pandemic is elevating stress and morale, which has been more of a challenge than ever before. And as I've noted earlier, we experienced over my time here at the United Way unprecedented turnover. And so some of the ways that we're addressing morale, stress, and the turnover factor include continuous use of input sessions. We have elevated the use of exit interviews to get feedback as people leave. We are securing the assistance of outside consultants that have HR and organizational expertise so that we could self-assess how we're managing against those factors. Addressing stress head-on is also critical. So we're doing a lot of open-ended conversations about stress and morale. We're encouraging staff to seek out EAP and other supportive services like mental health supports if that's complementary to the stress factors that they're feeling. And we're always looking for new opportunities that we can embrace that will help support our staff during this challenging time. And we also are changing the business model when necessary in light of turnover. And I wanted to give you one simple example of that. Sometimes backfilling is not an opportunity or is not always the best approach to take. So what we've done is we found that with turnover in IT and marketing, sometimes looking to vendors to help complement those operational divisions can still allow us to maintain the strategic focus that we need to as an organization and still allow us access to new and innovative approaches because they're outside expertise coming to the forefront, and it can be done in a cost-effective way as well. And also engaging individuals and divisions and teams on a continuous basis in support of an inclusive and respectful organization as paramount importance. So actions a participatory leader takes to support a respectful culture is a win-win for the leader, for the staff, and for the organization. One of the things that we've looked at is the use of office hours, an open door policy, supporting special events. Like got holiday season coming up, we're looking to do special activities, a volunteer engagement opportunity that will help families during holiday season. We're giving out gift cards to staff to recognize their contributions, their support during a critical time. And there are other features that we've done. We have a 742 crew that meets on a regular basis. It's an internal team that helps create and coordinate these special events as well. These are all things that create engagement and a continuum that helps make a world of difference in our environment. And then finally, we have always conveyed to the workforce not this open door policy. And in light of the pandemic, we've even gone to elevating the use of office hours because we think that that's another way to promote uninterrupted private time with managers, with leaders. And it really has encouraged others to step up and interact as well. The last slide, I thought maybe in this last slide, I categorized it as a call to action before we open it up to Q&A. But really, I think doing the research in this domain is of great importance. There's so much literature written on participatory leadership. There's a lot to learn here. I think also experimenting with the model. I know that in my career, I've had to do a lot of experimentation to learn as I go. And I don't think you have to feel like you have to have all the answers as you embrace this model. And you could learn from the engagement, from the feedback of others that we talked about earlier. Continuously acquiring feedback from key stakeholders is always a good checks and balance as we move forward. And consulting with others who have embraced this approach. We've all had mentors and coaches in our career. This is something that I would encourage as well. And where necessary, adjusting and reimagining your leadership style so it embraces an inclusive, diverse, motivating, and best interest for the organization is always a best practice as well as you think about your future pathway. I'm going to stop there. I provided a lot of information in a very brief period of time, but I wanted to open it up for any questions or even reactions that you may have to this framework.
Thank you so much, Michael, for giving us so much of your experience and background in this form of leadership. It sounds to be a very inclusive type of leadership. How have you seen this play out in boards of directors? I know United Way does quite a bit of work in board governance. Do you see this model being adopted to boards too?
Well, I think that what we've done is we've actually provided board leadership training, as you well know, Molly, for all of our stakeholders in this community, because we think it's a way of first having the knowledge that you need to have about what it means to be a board member, and then embracing a leadership approach that works best for that organization. And so I'd like to think that many organizations in the not-for-profit sector embrace a participatory leadership approach, but that's not always the case. And that is a reality that we all need to face. But you first need that foundational governance knowledge as what it means to be a board member. So learning those fiduciary responsibilities, learning about what it means to be a fundraiser, learning what it means, what the laws and the statutes are associated with governance. These are all things that help set the foundation for a leadership approach. And then my hope would be that a board that is receptive is embracing a participatory leadership approach and allows that CEO and that leadership team to adopt those frameworks moving forward as they operate.
Thank you. We have a question from Jean. What are some lessons learned from the exit interviews?
Yes.
Conversation.
And these are done confidentially. None of us know the names, other than the HR director. None of us know the names of the feedback that we're getting. Sometimes what we're hearing are things that are somewhat disappointing. Like, for example, maybe the leadership team is being too reactive to certain situations or didn't provide enough support around maybe it was grant acquisition work to sustain a particular important product or service. Sometimes it's refreshing feedback about embracing this inclusive approach, and hearing from those that are involved in exit interviews that they felt embraced, they felt included, they felt that the mission of the organization against what contributions they made was fully aligned. So I think you hear both the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think it's important for organizations to continue to expose themselves to that confidential, influenced feedback, because it really helps you shape the future direction you take and the corrective action that you need to engage in as well. Good question.
We have a question from Rick. You obviously work closely with lots of different types of organizations in your leadership role. Over the course of your career with United Way, have you seen a noticeable change in organizations toward collaborative, participatory approach in certain types of organizations versus others? Examples, healthcare versus professional service, manufacturing.
A great question as well. And I would say that now more than ever, in light of the pandemic, there are more organizations in the not-for-profit sector coming together to support one another, to explore new business models like shared services, co-location, joint training opportunities. This is important because there aren't sufficient resources for us all to do this independently. And so we want to continue to embrace that kind of collaboration, and organizations that could step forward from a collective impact standpoint and provide that kind of facilitation and leadership, whether it's the foundation community, whether it's the United Ways across the region, or it's organizations that step up and take a leadership role in that regard. It's now better than ever. We're seeing that kind of opportunity unfold.
And we have a question about resources from Karen. You mentioned there are many good resources available. Are there any specific books or resources that you'd like to recommend?
Well, great question. One of the things that I've learned is that LinkedIn is a great resource for certain types of curricular and training. I've also learned that every organization in the not-for-profit sector is typically affiliated with some statewide or national organization that provides access to training curriculum as well. For example, in the United Way Worldwide sector, when we all embraced diversity, inclusion, and equity as a new way of thinking and operating, well, that's a great way to, from top of mind, but you need to operationalize new practices and embed new philosophies and new policies as well. Well, United Way Worldwide stepped up with an equity framework toolkit that allowed us to look at policies and practices, new criteria with a focus on equity and future investments, a training curriculum that they provide that now is available to our staff and our board. So those are some opportunities that are quick of mind, but I would also say very quickly, there are outstanding consultants in our community that could step up and help fill gaps as well. I look to Jim Lemoyne as somebody that helps us with our Lead with Purpose program curriculum that we do with our business partners every year, servant leadership, which he embraces so strongly and so provocatively and so effectively. This is another way of utilizing the talent that's right in our room to bring forward that opportunity for learning as well.
Thank you so much, Michael. We're grateful for your role here today and your support in the community. It's great working with you as always.
Thank you very much.
And thanks everyone who joined us and joins us week in and week out. Join us next Monday. We're going to have Ian McFarland, President and CEO of EA Engineering, Science and Technology. We're coming up on a year, so you won't want to miss any of our episodes. So thanks everybody. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on Monday.